Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out.
Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast. I am Lisa Sharp, your resident clutter expert, and we are here with Jen Turrell, our resident money coach, and the wonderful Lisa Carpenter, who is our resident food and nutrition coach. And today we're going to be talking about something that I really enjoy talking about, which is the latte effect. Meaning, when we're talking about money, we're talking about how much money do some of these sort of incidental things that we buy without really any thought cost over a long term? So the latte effect, meaning that, you know, the cost of a latte, you hear that all the time, right? Like, oh, for less than the cost of a latte, like who in the hell is buying a latte every single day? A lot of people are buying lattes every single day, but it doesn't literally have to be a latte, right? So it can just be anything that you are sort of treating yourself to, or that you are doing habitually, like taking yourself out to lunch or mindlessly shopping while you're watching TV, you know, online, your favorite boutique. There are like a mazillion different ways that you can be spending money without really being conscious that you're doing it. Now, the flip side of that is, how are you treating yourself? And are those treats really treats? So Jen and I did a podcast on her podcast about almost a year ago on financial fluency.
It probably was about a year ago now.
Yeah. Wow. About junk spending. And what does that even mean? So Jen, why don't you tell us a little bit about junk spending and how these two things intersect? Because I think this is a gray area of, are we treating ourselves and doing something nice for ourselves, or are we just digging a bigger hole?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great topic too. And I think it really relates to all three of our areas, because if it is a latte, that does have a lot of calories, sugar, et cetera. You know, if you're buying at a Starbucks something, so that goes into Lisa's area, Lisa Carpenter's area. If you're buying stuff that comes into your home habitually or regularly or with thoughtlessly, that is our clutter area. And then the money part of it all, I like to think of junk spending in much the way you describe junk food. So it's the filler that does not really give you many nutrients. It's kind of like the empty calories of life is what I think of it as. Mm-hmm. So, if you aren't getting joy and if you're not getting nurtured by it in some way, if it's something that you're spending that you could forget that you even bought, or forget that you even ate, or you could... It's something that you don't want to put onto the food list if you're doing a food log.
Oh, good. Yeah, right, Jen.
Me putting my food logs. And the things that you will probably eventually have to declutter if you bring it into your home. It's like, I think that's junk spending that is junk. And there are some experience type things that you can do that go into that too. For the most part, I think experience spending is better than a lot of other kind of spending, because studies have shown that we get more joy out of, you know, taking our families to go do something together and have quality time and experience something, or, you know, tick something off the bucket list like skydive, or, go up in a hot air balloon or something. Like, I don't think those qualify as junk spending if it's something you've been planning and dreaming about. It's stuff you can forget about so easily.
Yeah.
That's what
those
I think of as
impulse.
Yeah.
Impulsive, I think, where...
Including junk food. Junk food is a big junk spending.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I find that junk spending usually happens when we are emotionally triggered in some way and we are self-soothing, right? So you've had the rotten day with the boss and you've just gotten into, like, you know, an argument with them or something, and then you're like, screw it, I'm going to the mall. You know, I am going to take care of myself. I am going to treat myself, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, when we are buying because we're trying to fix those emotions by, you know, circumnavigating them, really, then we end up with this stuff in our houses that usually ends up as clutter. I mean, if you think about all of the impulse purchases that you've made in your lifetime, how many of those impulse purchases have been like your favorite thing ever? Probably not a lot, maybe a small percentage, you know, because
I think of one necklace.
Yeah.
That I wasn't planning on buying, but I was in a person's actual studio who made it. And I thought, that's so
see that I wouldn't say that's a junk spend.
Oh, I don't think it's junk. It was impulse.
That's
impulse, but it wasn't junk.
Yeah. So I'm talking about like those emotional triggers. Like there's something that is going on in our lives that we're uncomfortable with, and that we are buying something or doing something that and that's what I want to talk about, like that intersection of like treating yourself for instance, for me, I always have fresh flowers. That is pretty much a non-negotiable. It makes me super happy, super like probably happier than should be normal. And it costs me $10. It's part of my grocery, budget. Do I need flowers? No. Is it an impulse? No. I am actually treating myself with this because this is something that I consciously choose. It brings me joy, and it's something that is important to me, versus treating myself to, a chocolate fudge sundae because I'm having a good day, or treating myself because I got into an argument with somebody, or I'm upset because my mom is in a nursing home and has Alzheimer's, and I feel so crappy and so sad. And I can't stand feeling like this, and I'm going to do something to make myself feel better. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that, but I think that, and truly giving yourself grace and, just allowing those behaviors, but becoming conscious of what is really under there and why we're actually buying them. What is the thing that we are trying to fix? And is that, is it a beautiful necklace because it makes you really happy because you met the artist? Is it the flowers because they make you really happy? Is it, I'm buying a new shirt because I'm feeling really insecure and I'm about to go meet a bunch of new people, and I feel like everything that I have is really crappy, even though I have clothes in my closet that have tags on them from the last time that I did this.
Are you talking to me?
No, not in particular. I'm just saying, this is a really common behavior.
It's such a great topic because, of course, I see this with food, right? A lot of what I do with Inside the Eat program and my programs is getting the women that I work with to really dial into how they're feeling and paying attention to the patterns. So in talking about spending, this week my son didn't make the hockey team. This is a hockey team that he wanted it. I've never seen him want something so badly before in my life. It was the Rep A1 team playing with all his friends. It was going to be an epic year. He was so sure it was his. He'd been doing visualizing. He showed up the best way he could, and he didn't make it. He didn't get on the team. And, I had to sit back and be there for him, but keep my hands off of his emotional process, which is really challenging as a parent, right? Not fix it, let him have his emotions and just feel because I was feeling sadness as well, not for him, but because I was genuinely sad. Hear my kid sad, I feel sad, of course, because it's my sadness. Anyways, he sends me a message the next day because he was staying at his dad's, and he says, "Can you take me to go buy new hockey? I need to go buy new pads today." And I said, "Well, you don't actually need new pads today." I said, "So here's what I'm picking up on, that you are really sad and really frustrated, and this is really, really hard for you." And I said, shopping is not a great behavior to get into starting at the age you're at to help yourself feel better. And he said to me, "Well, I was planning on buying the pads regardless." And I said, "And I get that." I said, "But I also know that you're looking for a way to feel better. And this is part of what's going on." So, he's 16. He's not going to be that, and he's a boy. He's not going to be that deep. But it was so amazing for me to see, for me, it was so clear that pattern was there. I'm just going to shop. And I've really struggled with my finances and my relationship with money. And I would love for my kids to have a better awareness and understanding and relationship with it moving forward. So it was really cool to have that conversation with them and just say, I want you to pay attention to this. It may or may not be, like, it's not necessarily junk spending. He does need pads. He's growing like a weed. But it was just having him pay attention to how he was feeling in the moment. Now, for me, my junk spending, so I don't really shop for myself. It's really rare for me. I went out and bought some new clothes yesterday, which is totally rare for me. And it's still, this was the first time I didn't actually feel anxious spending money on me. Because I used to feel really anxious. Like, I'd put things back a gazillion times and I'd second guess it and all this kind of stuff. Now I kind of know what I like and I'm okay to spend money. But where I have a lot of junk spending is on my business. I can justify anything for my business. I have bought stuff, like, I don't even know which stuff I've bought that I've never opened, that I've never used. So that's one of the things I've become incredibly mindful of, because I'm now moving into like the next stage. And I wish I was looking at my phone to see if I had a picture of the cover of this book that I'm reading. And I know I talked to Lisa Sharp about it. One of my coaches sent it to me. And so you guys know that I've got a lot of respect for the recovery community and kind of the processes they go through. And so this book talks about debt recovery and treating debt like your addiction. And I'd never looked at it in that way for myself, right? So I'm always looking at how to pay off my debt, how to make more money, how to right? Paying attention to my bills. But I never actually looked at how to, or I never looked at the fact that me debting was the problem. So I'm in this phase now of every day, the focus is to just not incur any more debt. So instead of focusing on paying off my debt, now every single day I wake up and it's like, okay, today I will incur no debt just for today, because it really is a one day at a time process. And I got to tell you, it's uncomfortable, because now I can't just say I'm going to put it on my credit card. I have to look, see if the money's in the bank. I have to decide, right? So I was talking to you guys before we hit record about this program that I'm really interested in getting, but it means that something else I don't get to have if I choose to have this, because I cannot incur any debt if I want to get it. So I'm allowed to get it if I want, but without incurring any debt. And I have to really, like, now I let myself sink into the decision-making process. So I haven't decided on this program yet, ladies, so don't drag me through the coals on it. I got to do some journaling about it and really sink into it. And part of the reason, again, because I know they're raising the price on it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really having to be serious about it, because I know it's a tool that I want in my business for a variety of reasons as I scale. But yeah, slowing down and really, is this a junk spend? Do I need it right now? Yeah, all those kind of different things. I've got so many virtual PDFs and downloads and crap that I've never, and it's $27. What's $27?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the ones that get me. Like, if you price it under $30, sure, what's $30? What's $30?
I'm getting a lot of emails now for people pitching you stuff under $30.
That is kind of the Latte factor there, because if you
exactly
you get an extra $30 every.
Oh my God!
She's got the calculator.
I've got the calculator out. I mean, an extra $30 every week. That's one of those purchases a week. It's over $1,500, which is why they say, well, here, I'm just going to quickly, because I've thought about the Latte factor thing so much, I'm just going to quickly show you what his point is. Yeah. So this is David Bach in The Automatic Millionaire. He came up with the Latte factor. I always I've seen some discussions lately about giving credit for tools and stuff. So I do always try.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll post that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll post it in the show notes. Here's my issue with him, because he also wrote a book called Smart Women Finish Rich. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any inkling of what bothers me about that? That title?
Smart Women Finish Rich?
Smart Women Finish Rich.
You have to be
Well, part of it is a man deciding what is smart for a woman. And a lot of those things are things like the Latte factor. And I do feel like because the original story of the Latte factor was this guy, David Bach, talking to a woman who works in an office about the fact that she can't save. And what he hones it on is what do you get a coffee every day? Do you get a coffee with a muffin? So basically he figured out that she spent a little between $10 and $15 every day on her way in to get this thing. And it was where she met up with her colleagues, where they chatted before they started the workday, and then they went into work. So it was like a little social thing as well. It is true doing this every single day, but it's part of her routine, it's part of her breakfast. So he said, okay, let's take $15 a day. If you do it times 365 days, that's you doing it on the weekend as well. It's $5,400 that he's saying. That more than funds your IRA for the year. That more than funds your traditional IRA or Roth IRA, whichever one it is. So he's saying if everyone finds $10 to $15 every day that they can pull out without making any more money, without getting a raise, they can do this. The thing is, I felt like what he honed in on was a glass of wine at dinner, cut flowers. Do you need cut flowers at your desk? Do you need a cup of coffee with that friend? And part of what my thought was, what if that's her social thing that she looks forward to most every day? Meeting up with a friend before going into work at a job that she's not crazy about, doing all of these things. Because, when you were talking about the emotional side of spending makes you feel powerful. You have the power to own something, and that's a pretty big power historically. And it's also a power that for generations, women were pretty much denied. Maybe they had a household budget, but there are a lot of cultures in which women are still bought and sold. This is not completely eradicated from the world. And many of those cultures, women, some of them, they can't drive. Some of them, you can't have a job outside of the home, agriculture, or the sex industry. There are a lot of places where women do not have a lot of power. Right. So our country took this desire for women who want power over commerce, over stuff. And I feel like the media and the advertising industry has really capitalized on it. We'll work for shoes. It's made our desire to have financial control into this thing that's kind of become a catchphrase and kind of derogatory, like, women work just to spend money, just to have like designer things, which isn't true at all. But at the same time, the actual hormonal process in our brain of buying things, you get a dopamine hit, you get there's pleasure, and there's control, and you feel important when you buy something. When you hand over a credit card or cash to that person at the till and they hand you something, like that is a real transaction and you own something now. Like that can really change your day from feeling powerless at a job you hate to having some power.
Absolutely.
When what it does is keep you in the debt cycle and bring clutter into your home, and you regret it afterwards, and you feel bad about yourself for buying something you didn't want to.
Right.
So, when I look at this whole latte factor thing, I think it's skewed towards women is one thing that bothers me. And towards the things that we like. But I also think that there are other ways to save that money. And one of them is, tax planning, really looking at your tax strategy for yourself and your business, particularly if you have a home business. There's a book I love called Lower Your Taxes Now, which I have. It's by Sandy Boykin. I have it just over here on my bookshelf. And what it helps you look at is ways to really plan your taxes, plan your spending, expense out at certain times of the year that save you money, when to do what, how to travel and deduct it, and all those sorts of things, which is a really good plan. Another way is having good credit. And when you make the big wins, like your mortgage, having an excellent instead of a good can be a couple points of interest on that. And that can easily add up to $3,000 in a year. That over the course of a 30-year mortgage, that is a lot of money. And cars, keeping your car more than the 5 years to pay it off, keeping it 7 to 10 years. There are all these like little ways. If the car is not important to you, if having the new car is not important to you, if paying to hire someone to help you with your taxes to save several $1,000s, even if it costs several $100s to hire them, or a few $1,000s, depending on sort of what tax bracket you're in, there are different things you can do to still maintain the care for you kind of expenses. Like I have book club night, and I buy a cocktail and usually some appetizers or something at that. And that's, because it's kind of an expensive cocktail, we go to a nice place that I really like. That could be $25 in a night that I spend with 3 other adult women where we do our best not to talk about our children, our spouses, or our jobs. We don't always talk about books, but we try not to talk about children, spouses, and jobs. And that's the only times, here with you guys, I get to do it, but we're not in person. It's one of the only in-person adult female times I have, and it is so worth it to me to do everything. So. Okay, I'll let you guys
love it. I love it. Yeah, it's so important to look at these things. I love what you bring to this, Jen, because you understand like the numbers.
I got the calculator here on my desk.
The calculator these today, every day. Yeah, but it's so important to look at these small behaviors because they really have a massive compound effect. So, for instance, if you are buying a lot of stuff because you're really miserable in your job, and then you end up feeling like super, super crammed in your house, so what do? You eventually start looking at bigger and better houses, right? Because you're so uncomfortable with where you are. Maybe, it seems like the next neighborhood over is a better one or something, or they have a better kitchen or better layout or something. And so the next thing you know, you're upgrading your life because you want to have more space. But maybe what you needed to do was to curb some of this spending and start looking at your current space, appreciating what you have in a new way by editing out some of the stuff that have been impulse purchases, that have been purchases that really don't feel good to you, that you were, and we all do this. Truly, there's no judgment in this at all. It's just a matter of recognizing that this behavior can be destructive in the short term, and it can also be destructive in the long term.
And maybe what you really need to look at is that job, because upgrading, buying a new house, that locks you into the job because you can't go to a lower salary. And same with the debt. That's something I did a blog post about ages ago on my own website, was 2 questions to ask before buying a house. I'm just going to throw these in here because I think we do try to upgrade certain things to try to make us happier when maybe what we really need to look at is a whole other area. So the article that I did, and I was really excited when I hit on this because I've never heard anyone ask these 2 questions. Before you buy a house, are you happy in your relationship and are you happy in your job? And the reason I ask those things is because, particularly if you're entering into a major purchase contract with someone else, if this is either a spouse or a long-term partner of some kind, you are locking yourself into something major. It's illiquid. It's hard to get out of a house. It depends what the housing market's doing. If something happens to the housing market, it may be impossible to get out of. So you are really locking yourself in with this person if you're buying with them. If you're not buying with them, that's a different situation, but it's still worth looking at before you buy a house. If you don't like your job, again, are you locking yourself into your situation by buying this house? Does the job you really want exist somewhere else? Like, would you rather be living in another town, another state, maybe even another country? That money that you would be putting into the house as down payment, that could be your freedom fund. So
yeah.
And a house, for most people, this is the biggest purchase you ever make. It's the biggest part of your net worth. For most people, it drastically imbalances their overall portfolio because you have most of your money in this one asset, in this one basket of eggs over here. And we've seen things happen in the housing market that can make it very difficult. And I'm not saying that renting is a better investment than buying, because it's not, because you have no equity when you rent, but you have more freedom when you rent.
Yep.
So what is more important to you? The freedom, the period of your life that you're in right now? So, I think that's why traditionally people buy houses after they've gotten married and ready to have kids, because you're planning on staying somewhere for at least 5 years. If you're not staying in the relationship and the job for 5 years and you're going to buy a house based on those 2 things, you probably shouldn't, unless you have some idea of like flipping houses or something, which again, I don't recommend people going into because I've never done it. I don't know anything about it. But because of all the fees and stuff you incur and how hard it is to buy and sell a house, for your average person, you don't really want to buy a house unless you're planning on staying in your basic situation for 5 years.
So Lisa Carpenter, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, look at you. Okay. Do you need it right now? Like I said, debt and spending is, this is really where, we did another episode talking about how far we've come, right? And I talked about how far I've come with my money and knowing that this is kind of the next phase for me to step into. So one of the things that I'll be having to look at is the do I need it now versus can it wait? What are the pros and cons? Because sometimes I do believe that we have to upgrade things before we're necessarily ready to upgrade them, because what got you to here isn't going to get what gets you to there. but it really is sinking into what's really going on for me, and can things wait?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like my next commitment, like I said, is to not incur any more debt, period. End of story. Right. So, cause after reading this book, and I wish I could remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of it, Lisa?
Mm-mm.
It's somewhere. Anyways, it really, like, that's really the only way out of having debt, is to not incur any more debt. Because this was kind of the big aha for me, is the more I make, unless I deal with my spending, right? I just make more and I spend more.
Yep.
Right. It's like thinking, well, if I stop drinking wine, I can have a beer. Well, you can't if you're an alcoholic. Like, the saying is, one is too many, 10,000 is never enough. And it's true whether it's with debt or overeating or over shopping. You have to look at the behavior. So I've been looking at, how do I fix the problem? And it's been over this past week that it's like, oh, I am the problem. And I know that sounds so bizarre, because I've known I've been the problem the whole time. But this is like a new level of awareness around, this really isn't about me earning more income. It's about me really looking at this behavior around debting and saying, I'm not going to do it anymore. And it's been so habitual for me that's. So like I said, this is where the rubber hits the road, ladies, because I can't spend if I don't have the money, which is interesting.
It is. So what
downright un-American in some ways.
Oh, man,
I'm Canadian.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The nation of debtors.
Oh man.
Well, and you know what? I've had this conversation with a few people, and honestly, people are very, very uncomfortable when I say, my issue is around debting and I can't debt anymore. And they're like, I can't even talk about it. I could never do that. Like that is, so it's really interesting. It's like sitting with somebody who just drinks socially. Yeah. And when you suggest to them that maybe there might be a problem with how much they're drinking socially, they're like, no. Right. Like it's just been fascinating to have that conversation, because I talk about debt and my money with no shame. Like I can talk about it openly, whereas 2 years ago, I would never have talked about this publicly, let alone put it out on a podcast, right? Because what does it mean? Does it mean that I'm not successful? Does it mean I'm irresponsible? Like all the stories around it. And now I talk about it so openly. And it creates such curiosity for me, people's responses, to see like, wow, this, it's fascinating stuff. So even you, Lisa, when we had this conversation, you're like, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't know.
Oh, it's so interesting, right? So my husband doesn't drink, and it's always interesting. He stopped drinking about 5 years ago, and it's so interesting to see other people's reactions to him not drinking, because his not drinking has nothing to do with anybody else. Nothing. He's not sitting there going, no, I just want a club soda, and is like giving everybody else the stink eye because they're drinking. He could care less.
Yeah.
But what happens is that it triggers other people, and they start like, oh, well, I could never do that. It's like if you lose weight, right? Same thing. If like, oh, well, how did you do that? Well, what does that mean? Oh, I could never do that. Oh, I could never give up bacon and donuts. It's like
at the same time.
Bang on. That is so true, because that's how it is with food, with women, right?
Yeah.
And men as well. Like I could never follow a system. I could never follow a plan. I could never learn how to eat, more than twice a day. That's the story, right? Like for me to say, I could never, stop debting. Like that's the story. But the truth is I can. It's just going to be uncomfortable. And that, we've talked about this before, is the willingness. Are you willing to become uncomfortable and have that as your new normal? Because what it is you want for yourself is so much bigger. I want to be out of debt. So I can't say that I want to be out of debt and continue to have junk spending that creates more debt. I can't do that. If you want to lose weight, you can't continue to eat what you're eating and think you're going to lose weight. If you want to have a house that's got less clutter in it,
you can't keep buying stuff and bringing it in and then wondering why you can't find your couch. You have to do the things you don't want to do. You have to do the things that you've been pushing against. And it takes work. Like, it's just uncomfortable. And I love that I'm doing this, because when I teach my classes, right, and my next live round of EAT is coming up, when I teach my classes and I'm pushing, nudging, shaking, my clients, I get it. Like, I get it. Yeah. When they push back at me, it's like, I am in the trenches with you, lady. I get it, because this is what I'm walking through, and this is what I'm sharing with you. And
I do want to make a point about groups like that, because as you were talking about that, especially with the drinking thing, my only experience of the addiction recovery communities you're talking about, most of the cowboys that we have on our ranch have at some point gone through one of those things. And we go out to dinner and everyone orders iced teas. And it is so interesting, because the first few, when Stu and I started on the ranch, almost 13 years ago now, I'd have a glass of wine and he'd have a beer. And it was kind of weird when we realized none of them drink, yet they all had these stories of their wild and crazy days. But they had pretty much all gone through, at some point, a born-again Christian program and the 12-step Alcoholics Anonymous. And there is actually Debtors Anonymous here in the United States. It is recognized as, gambling, especially Vegas gambling, gambling addiction is really serious. But
there's OA, there's NA, there's Debtors Anonymous, there's a 12-step program for pretty much everything.
Yeah. But it is interesting that what I saw with those guys was they don't hang out with the people who still go out and get wild and drunk, and they hang out together now. The guys who order, they go out to dinner with their wives and their families, and they order iced tea. And it was like, and honestly, now Stu and I just order iced tea too. Not that we never drink, but we don't feel the need to always drink, and we're respecting it. It's like, this just, you go out to lunch with your mom, you don't necessarily order a cocktail. It's just not like the moment to do it. But I really appreciated the way that they all stick together, and they all go to the same church, and they all do these activities together. And it got me thinking again, like, about the groups that we've all tried to make for our own little communities.
Community is so important.
The guys, they can tell those old stories, but now what they talk about is like, oh, my kid they won best in show at 4-H, or I've got this new roping horse and I'm training it, so like they have other things to talk about now that don't try to pull them back into the old addictive.
You have to surround yourself with people that are emulating and doing the things that you want. So
Absolutely.
If I want to lose weight, I need to hang out with people who have lost weight, who are trying to lose weight, who are committed to making change. If I want to create wealth consciousness, I need to be in the room with women who are okay with making money, who aren't, who don't have these same stories, right? Like, so if I'm hanging out with, friends and stuff who think it's, I don't want to say not healthy, but like greedy to want to make money or to have a certain income level, I will never allow myself to get there. So it's part of the discomfort is moving yourself out of the room with the people that aren't supportive of what you want for yourself, and putting yourself in the room with the people that you want to. And this is why, my community is so important. Your community, Jen, your community, Lisa. This is why these are key components for all the programs we teach, because we give women that space to be around other people who are saying, it's okay for you to want this. It's okay for you to want to lose weight. It's okay for you to want to have less stuff and buy less stuff. And it's okay for you to get rid of stuff as you're bawling your eyes out. Because that's me, right? Like, I can't get rid of it.
It's okay to bawl as you get rid of it.
You need to be around those people. And it's like, I remember one of the sayings was, in order to live a life of recovery, everything has to change. Right? Like, you have to be prepared to change everything. Like, what do you need to let go of? You need to let go of everything. You need to start anew. So it's not that you can't have those old friends in your life. You still can. But where's where's the majority of your people? And be around those people, because that's when you'll grow and change. And I know that that's been instrumental for the changes I've made in my life. I'm super grateful for knowing women like you and some of the communities that I hang out in. So
it's topic. So critical. Yeah, we could definitely talk about this one for hours.
Write it on the sheet.
Probably should wrap up.
Yeah. But we'll wrap it up here. So do you guys have anything you want to share? Anything that's coming up for you, Jen Turrell?
My main thing is if people want to join my community, I have my Money Matters Mastermind where we get on Zoom every week so we can all hang out and chat. That's one of my favorite things right now. There's also content that you can access for my 6-week program, and we do a lot of weekly different challenges, discussions, talk about things. That's my main thing. I also have Financial Fluency, the podcast that's ongoing.
Love it.
We'll put those links in the show notes. Lisa, what about you?
I have my EAT program, which stands for Educate, Action, Transformation, and it's all about empowering women to learn how to make their own food choices so you can build out your own nutritional blueprint. So it's no more guessing what you should or shouldn't be eating. You get to choose. I'm going to be teaching live for 6 weeks starting mid-October alongside the virtual classroom material that is there for life. And the whole EAT community is available. So you can head over to my website to learn more about that.
Love it.
What about you, Lisa Sharp?
Yeah. So I'm actually in both Jen and Lisa's programs, and they are amazing. So I don't think I've ever said that before, but it is. I mean, like, I don't think I've ever said on the podcast that I'm in your groups, but I'm in your groups because you guys are the experts, and I have learned so much from both of you. So thank you for that. And I
think we're all in each other's.
I think we're all.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we started this together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Phenomenal work.
I don't know that we've ever said that. So go us. And and we would, so we're there. So if anyone wants to join any of these programs, you're going to see all of us on the inside of these programs because we're all learning from each other. So friends, colleagues, and students of one another for sure. So I also have a membership program. It's called The Blueprint, where we go step by step through your entire house and declutter it in 15 minutes a day. Truly 15 minutes a day. All about the incremental steps and having fun doing it. So in the program, we have a monthly group coaching call where you can ask me all kinds of questions and I can see your space. And we have a really cool interactive Facebook group where you can come in and celebrate your wins. Like, I made my bed today. I got the old dishes that my mother-in-law gave me. And they're in my trunk right now going to Goodwill. So celebrating those wins and really having a good time doing it. So if you are interested, you can find the blueprint in the show notes below. We'll all have all of our links to our programs. We hope to see you there. Please come over to our Facebook group for the podcast. We will also have the link to that below where you can come over, show, tell us what has been coming up for you as you're listening to these podcasts, and share some of your victories. We are totally there for you. We'll be happy to high five you and enjoy your victory with you. So please rate and subscribe, so easily said, and share the podcast if you got something out of it and you know that somebody else that you love would also enjoy getting something out of it. So thanks so much for sharing your time with us, and we'll see you soon.